It gives me great pleasure to welcome Anant Gupta, CEO, HCL Technologies, and Anil Chanana, CFO at HCL Tech. Thank you both very much for joining us on NDTV Profit. I think that the pre-earnings briefing, warning in a sense, had prepared the street, investors, analysts, everyone who follows HCL Tech closely to be ready for this set of quarterly numbers. But Anand, first off, I'm going to ask you to describe this quarter in qualitative terms before we talk about, where the next wave of revenue is going to come from.
Sure. I think if you look at our quarter this year, we've started the fiscal with a very strong foundation. We grew by about 13.5% on a Y-on-Y basis on constant currency, so that's good. For us, start of the fiscal is important because it really lays the foundation of what will happen in the full fiscal, right? If you look at our order book, even in this quarter, it is 10% higher than what we've previously seen. So that gives us a great comfort in terms of what's the road ahead and what we will deliver over there. Now, if you look at our performance, in the last three fiscals, right, with respect to the average of the top three, we've always outperformed, and we're extremely confident we will outperform that as well in this fiscal, right? And finally, on our margin line, right, we continue to guide 21 to 22%. We're extremely confident that we'll deliver those numbers from a full fiscal perspective.
And indeed, the margins are robust. Anil, the sort of tepid revenue outlook that you had warned about, just break it down into the components and how they played out.
So I think, I would say the picture has been better than what we were anticipating. If you look at 13.5% quarter-on-quarter constant currency growth on Y-on-Y basis, this is a very good Y-on-Y growth. And secondly, if you look at either US geography or Europe, 12% in US, 18% in Europe have been very good growth rates. And even infrastructure services, that's about 17% Y-on-Y has come out to be very good. So I would say that the growth has come out to be good. And at the same time, we see our bookings are better, so which will enable us to deliver more.
Well, we'll talk about bookings and pipeline and how they can convert into revenues and how soon. But I just wanted you, Anand, to just flesh out the fact that this factor that you mentioned, the elongated transition timelines in complex deals, is it a sign of things to come at a larger level as well? I mean, is this what people now should be prepared for as deals become more complex?
So I think in a way it's a positive thing. It really means that we are now getting into a league of playing some complex deal, which traditionally, we've never been in there, which was largely the forte of the large global players. But given the incumbency nature, the renewal and the churn in that, players like HCL being pulled into those engagements is important. So winning those deals to acquire marquee customers, transforming the entire global landscape is an important thing. Now, obviously, what comes with that increased addressable market is complexity and the lead time it takes to execute that. Right? It's like saying if you're running a Fortune 10 companies, you're transforming the data centers worldwide. It will take a lot more time than doing the transformation for, let's say, a Fortune 2000 company.
Absolutely.
Very simply. So the fact that the ratio of such engagements have increased, including this quarter we announced a deal with a Fortune 10 oil and gas major, indicates that we're being pulled into marquee engagements. But yes, they will mean a longer term execution. It will mean a little jumpiness or volatility in the quarterly performance, but if you take it on a yearly basis, they will even out, right?
We talked about the fact that there's healthy bookings, strong deal pipeline, and HCL Technologies has been on top of that in terms of signing, marquee deals in a sense. But what about the revenue translation? I mean, when do we start seeing a lot of this sort of kick in? Wait 2 quarters further down?
If you look at from this fiscal, I think, we will see a lot more in H2 for us in this fiscal. As we speak, we are transforming and transitioning 10 very large engagements in infrastructure itself, right? They will convert into, and they're again at different stages, they will convert into revenues in the second half. So we believe if you look at it from a full fiscal, they will be very robust. They will move more towards H2. I think the opportunity in the marketplace from an acquisition perspective of customers and deals is still high. So the focus on that even in H1 would continue to be very strong.
Okay, so two important points that you made there. The acquisition will continue to be strong in H1, but I think the revenue translation is going to be stronger in H2. Have I summarized it accurately?
Fairly good, yes.
Okay. Margins. What's the strategy to keep them at that 20-plus level? 21, 22 is what you're guiding for the full year.
So we have been guiding 21 to 22% EBIT level for the full year, number one. Number two, if you look at our margin trajectory, I mean, we started the investments in the beginning of the year, calendar 2015. We made investments, and these investments have started paying off. If you see this particular quarter, in spite of the wage increase happening in this quarter, we have been able to increase our margins by about 40 basis points from 20.1 to 20.5. And we are confident that we'll be able to deliver the guided margin range.
I know that our appointed time with you is running out. Anant, I just wanted to reflect on regions, geographies that are going to deliver growth for you, verticals that are going to really be the stars versus others. And I know that's always classically an unfair question. And, you know, what the big ideas are going to be for this fiscal.
Sure. So let me start with these segments. So if I just look at the performance in this quarter on a Y-on-Y basis, life sciences grew by 40% for us. Public sector, in spite of the one-off transaction which we reported, still grew by 22%. Now, for public services for us includes oil, gas, energy, utility, and transport logistics. So we see a very significant move in that, especially as oil and gas companies relook at their operating model given the low oil prices, right? If you look at even telecom and entertainment, that grew by about 23% for us on Y-on-Y basis. So we still see a lot more churn in terms of the way telecom companies are looking at in trying to be more digitalized and be more and offer a very differentiated experience to their consumers. So we see those sectors continue. Financial services and manufacturing are still strong, although on a Y-on-Y basis, not as much. But if I just look at the whole of last fiscal, they delivered well. We continue to see that those two momentum markets will still be very strong, right? Of course, each market will be in a very different way, will be pursuing how they move. If I look at geographies, Europe continues to be very strong. There is still a huge unaddressable market over there, or let's say an untapped market within, the DACH region, the Benelux region. While we have seen significant growth in the Nordics, we still believe DACH and France, Benelux region are important markets. US not bad. It's always been a consistent clip. We won't see much surprises.
No positive surprises either?
No positive. Really. I think they're adopting more of digitalization and some of the next-gen ITO. But what I mean in terms of spurts in growth, I don't see any positive or a negative surprise from that perspective. If I come into the rest of the world, we see Australia and New Zealand grow very heavily. The market is looking at, again, a new breed of players. So we seem to be well poised over there. If you look at South Africa, again, we see that market to be shaping up fairly well.
And, any big ideas that
I think our big ideas really has been, so it's around the three themes, right? Next-gen ITO, which is what we see very heavily being driven by the next-generation automation strategy. We have been doing it for the last 5 years. There's no surprise. If you look at our, revenue per employee, those ratios reflect that. They're about good 22% higher than the industry average. We will continue to push that lever in terms of automation. I think the other big thing really is this whole, we have completed the formation of our Beyond Digital business unit. And really that is not something new per se, but we have always had a very strong capability in each of our lines of business, whether it's engineering for platform engineering or digital platform engineering work, or infrastructure or application. I think the need really was to be able to provide an end-to-end capability. So that is something which we have successfully put. The leadership team is already there, and we did announce a very large engagement with Manchester United as part of that integrated digitalization story.
And that's an interesting sort of space that continues to develop. One final comment from you, Anil, on the cross-currency impact. And again, what should the expectation really be, or is that really tough to quantify?
I wish I could quantify the
expectation.
Yeah,
I know that as I'm asking that question, but what are your thoughts on it?
I think, the things seem stable for now. Let's see.
Yeah, but you're going to be watching that space closely.
We keep on.
Yeah, as always. Anil, thank you very much for your time, insights. All the best for the rest of the year. Look forward to meeting with you soon.
Thank you.
We are here at the HCL Technologies office in New Delhi, in the NCR region, to be precise. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome Ajit Kumar, President, Systems Integration and Application Service Delivery, and Prithvi Shergill, CHRO at HCL Tech. Thanks very much for joining us on NDTV Profit. Ajit, if you could just describe this quarter, the first quarter. I know we've talked about how HCL Tech put out a warning, which in a sense prepared the street for the tepid revenue in the first quarter. But we moved beyond that. What's this quarter been like for you?
I think from a positive perspective, I think if you look at the two major parts of our business, the run the business part and the change the business part, I think on the run the business part, I think we continuing to see deal flows, however, very, very competitive. And the cornerstone for success for us, like probably some of the competition, has been how you can drive the automation lever to drive more productivity out of the workforce and drive, therefore, more cost savings to clients. Clients continue to look at ways and means of reducing their run the business spend in order to fund the change the business initiatives. From a change the business perspective, I think the three big headlines for us from an apps perspective is seeing the increased deal flows around digitalization. The second is really number of specific industries looking at revamping their traditional systems to meet competitive pressures in the marketplace, leading to what we call as modern apps development. Mm-hmm. And the third area, of course, which we do continue to see significant momentum, is analytics. And I think the real pinnacle is when all these three come together. When there is digitalization, when there is modern apps development, as well as advanced analytics to drive a completely different customer-consumer paradigm.
So the analytics sort of deal pipeline, in a sense, for HCL Technologies, sectorally speaking, vertical-wise, I mean, where is it coming from?
So we do see across the patch, we do see quite a lot of deals because, as I said earlier in some of the conversations, clients have invested a lot in transaction processing systems. That's been the history. There's been substantial enhancements, improvements, if you look at it, in terms of tools covering both hardware and software in terms of doing advanced analytics. So therefore, across the spectrum, you find clients trying to use these tools and the enormous wealth of data they have in their transaction systems to drive better decision making. And the most important change that we see now is real-time decision making. So whether that is at the point of sale in a retailer, we have advanced analytics algorithms that run in terms of what do you decide as the best price for a given product on a given day in a given marketplace. So I think the big change is really around the real-time nature of analytics.
Okay, let me talk about how you're building the capacity to address all of these opportunities that are out there. Prithvi, again, first, straightforward, this quarter, what's it been like?
I think it's been a quarter where we continue to strengthen our practices which deliver the ability of our employees to add value to our clients. We've done so by continually strengthening our learning assets. We've introduced an integrated technology platform. We call it iSuccess, which actually enables us to get information and insight and learning to our people real time, and I think where they need it in line with what kind of work they're doing. So I think by refreshing our curriculums, we've been able to ensure that the academies or the programs that we run are really relevant to the kind of work we're doing.
Touch upon productivity of employees as well as we pursue this.
Absolutely. And I think, our workforce operations, right from forecasting, right through fulfillment, has seen significant maturity over the last 2-3 years. And we continue to deliver industry-leading utilization numbers. We finished this quarter at 83.6%, which is, relative to others, clearly shows that our ability to understand the demand and supply equation is getting better and better. So I think that is good. We've been able to sustain a consistency in our voluntary attrition numbers, which continues to be, in the 16% region, which is also a distinctive given some of the more ups and downs that our industry tends to see.
Any remarkable cost trends?
I think cost continues to be a focus for us. We've gone through our own compensation reviews this quarter, so that has occurred. But we stay competitive. We do our annual benchmarking with in our target industry, and I think we are very, very competitive in that space.
What about building capability in response to the opportunities that Ajit outlined, or rather, very specifically, something like Beyond Digital? Has that posed any particular challenges?
Absolutely. I think you need in this new space you need to have a blend of your buy strategies, your build strategies, and your borrow strategies. I think at the speed at which we are seeing clients demand capability and require support, I think you need to look at all three. So you do need to rethink where you're sourcing from. You need some of the kinds of roles that we are seeing in what we're calling the 21st century enterprise. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, were not visible. Especially like you were talking about the analytics area. I think it's important to go back into the supply chain and work with universities to actually build certifications in that area.
And that's actually on the ground more daunting than it sounds.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The rest of the year, and this is just the first quarter. What is going to be occupying your mind space, Ajit?
I think in terms of how do we kind of build the necessary capabilities in terms of differentiators, etc., to really get the opportunity that is out there in the market. I think for us, basically, that's the key challenge. The opportunities are there. The question is, how can we shape ourselves? How can we be focused around the propositions, the clients, the target markets where we're going to drive this? Because as Prithvi mentioned, I think we are running a very tight ship. At 84-85% of utilization, there's not much of a headroom. So how do we manage these two contradictory paradigms in a sense?
So give me a flavor of how you do manage it.
So again, as I said, I think one, there has to be a sharp definition of what we are going to go after, and more importantly, things that we will be more opportunistic about. And that will cover the three dimensions, whether it is the domain, whether it is the industry, whether it's the market. And I think the second aspect is really getting ahead of the demand curve. And what that means is being really engaged in the dialogues with our customers, target customers, in terms of what's going through their mind, what are their boardroom discussions, so that we're able to get early signals in terms of where the momentum is, where the spend is going to be, and we align our capabilities around that. There is no other magic answer in terms of trying to manage this tight ship of basically demand and supply.
I mean, it's just because it's getting so dynamic that I'm pressing that point, because even when you say that you're trying to understand and get a head start on what the boardroom is discussing, often the boardroom itself, has no idea what the next chapter could bring. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that, say, gentlemen. Best of luck for the rest of the year. Great talking to you, and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.